Been a little while since we talked about books, so hold on, here we go. Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back. We're super glad you're here, and today we're going to talk about books. Y'all know how I am about books. I love books. I love to read. I have a huge library. It's a huge part of Mad River Outfitters. We sell a lot of books here at the shop. And people often ask me, how did you learn all of this stuff? And, my answer is always books. I read books and books and books when I was a kid. In fact, I think I've told this story before, but I think it was my 16th birthday. And I had saved up $400, and I talked my mom and dad into kicking in another $400, and I bought $800 of the top fishing books. So there was a local fishing store, and a guy there where I was in Cincinnati, he knew a little bit about fly fishing, and I said, well, what's the top 50 fly fishing books? And I bought them, and I read them. Still have them, a lot of them highlighted. So I can't say enough about it. A couple of new books, actually only one of them is relatively new, and a couple of other books I just want to point out that have been very influential in my life, and I think will be in yours too. And of course, just an announcement about John Gierak's new book. It's called All the Time in the World. Just came out. In fact, the first copies that we received are actually autographed. But anyhow, regardless, beautifully bound. In fact, I think it was specially bound for this first edition. I think it just came out in February. We've got a stack of them out there on the store floor. I'm about halfway through it, and it's just typical Gierak. I mean, as I'm getting ready to go to bed at night, I can read a couple of chapters. There was a chapter on Alaska, I think the second chapter, and I just felt like I was in Alaska. Everybody knows John Gierak at this point, and he just keeps pumping out books, and every one of them is worth reading. And I learn things, I laugh, and man, just a mess of my one-liners, of course, have come from Kelly Gallup, Flip Palette, but a lot of stuff has come right from John Gierak. I mean, he's got some zingers in here. Here's one. I think this was in the second chapter. He said he was describing a stray dog as the dog was working the crowd for handouts like a Southern politician. And he was explaining that the pandemic didn't affect his people because fishermen are all about social distancing, which is somewhat true. But just the way John writes and reflects on fly fishing, the lifestyle, and just on society in general is just, there's really not been a fishing writer like him. And here's a quote from the back of the book. But Peter says, I've never met John Gierak in person, but after reading him, I believe I've camped with him, fished with him, laughed with him. In his writing, he knows how to stay invisible, to let you slip into the story in his place. You believe it is you doing these things, seeing these things, smelling, hearing, and tasting them. And of course, now and then, everything goes right, and you come up tight to that trout, and you turn to see him smiling. You've got all the time in the world, so enjoy every journey, every cast, and every laugh. And, so far, this has really made me feel good. I've been fishing vicariously through John Gierak. So check it out if you're a Gierak fan. All the Time in the World, available at Mad River Outfitters. This book has been out for a little while. It came out in 2014. This is a book called Rivers of Sand. And if you're anywhere around the Great Lakes region, of course you've fished Michigan. John Gierak talks a lot about fishing Michigan and has a lot. A good friend of ours named Josh Greenberg. In fact, I think Josh went to Ohio State and actually shopped here at Mad River Outfitters when he was a youngster, but he eventually moved up to Michigan, started working at Gates Au Sable Lodge, and he is now the owner of Gates Au Sable Lodge. But this is just such a fantastically written book, and it's it's kind of a storybook. There's a lot of stories in here, somewhat similar to Girac, but a little bit more fishing wisdom. You're really going to learn a lot of fishing techniques, fishing approaches along the way. But one of the quotes talking about this book is, there's a beautiful and compelling blend of history, people, rivers, flies, and the introspection of a fine, inquiring mind. Not to mention one hell of a lot of incredibly practical information about Michigan's trout. There's a chapter on steelhead in here. So as Josh is telling you stories, you're really getting a lot of Michigan history. You feel like you learn a lot more about fly fishing in Michigan. And I really learned a lot along the way. In fact, I'm now reading this book for the third time. And you can see that apparently I read this book on a flight from Columbus to Charlotte. Just a fantastic book by Josh Greenberg called Rivers of Sand. And then last but not least, I think the newest of the trio here today is a book called Smallmouth, Modern Fly Fishing Methods, Tactics, and Techniques. Again, it's not brand new, but with a warm water fishing season coming on, I just wanted to bring this book to your attention if you don't already know about it. It's by Dave Krasinski and Tim Landwehr. Tim owns and operates Tight Lines Fly Shop up in De Pere, Wisconsin. Excellent, excellent anglers, guides, and writers. And of course, I think this is the definitive work. There's been a lot of books on smallmouth, but you know, smallmouth bass, they swim in more streams, rivers, and lakes and reservoirs than any other game fish. And they offer exceptional world-class fishing opportunities all around the country. They're probably more available than trout. They are more available to most of us than trout. And a lot of us will tell you that smallmouth provide much better game. A lot of folks will tell you that smallmouth is their favorite game fish, and you're starting to see that. Just people all over the country really figuring out how much fun fly fishing for smallmouth bass is, and it's probably right in your backyard. This is, friends, the definitive work on fly fishing for smallmouth bass. And if you don't own this book and you're a fan of smallmouth, and if you buy this book and you're not yet a fan of smallmouth, and you apply what you learn here, you will become a huge fan of fly fishing for smallmouth bass. It's big business for us here at Mad River Outfitters, and this is the must-have book. So Smallmouth, Modern Fly Fishing Method, Tactics, and Techniques. Of course, there's a link right down there below me. So thanks to Dave and Tim for such a great, great book. Best ever. There you have it, friends. Books. 3 great books. Of course, every new John Girac book is my favorite new book. Rivers of Sand, I'll probably read it again yet this year. And then Smallmouth, I find myself referring to this book and tying the flies in here and rereading this time and time again. It's that good of a book. So, as always, think about buying a book or two from MadRiverOutfitters.com. We really appreciate it. And we also depend on your support to be able to afford to make these videos and to keep the doors of the store open, for that matter, write paychecks and such. So anyhow, we appreciate you all being here. We appreciate your support. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an episode. Hit that like button. It just makes us feel good. And then be sure to watch this video right here and this one here, and stay tuned. We've got a lot more fly fishing content coming your way.